Thank you very much. The next question comes from Reuters, from Maggie Fick. Maggie, please.
Hello, my question is for Dr. Genov. As we know, there will be a number of product liability court cases over alleged health damage from COVID-19 vaccines, with people likely to be suing BioNTech and AstraZeneca for damages. We were wondering, what do you think are the hurdles to proving causality in court?
This is kind of a difficult question, but if, Georgi, you want to give at least a little bit of background probably on the safety profile of the vaccines.
Yeah, in court, I cannot comment. I have no experience, but I can tell you how we approach a causality assessment for safety issue for COVID-19 vaccines and any of the other medicinal products authorized. So we do monitor closely all data that emerges. We have on one hand, spontaneous reports. What I mentioned earlier, these are reports from people that have received the medicine or have been vaccinated, as well as from healthcare professionals. We collect those in a centralized database, and we closely monitor the reports. Now, there's also information that we take into account from clinical studies and any other pharmacoepi studies that might emerge. So causality, depending on the adverse event, could be a challenging issue, and taking all the available information into consideration is key. And having quick access to that information has been key during the COVID-19 safety monitoring. The number of issues, and I probably should not go into details, that need to be considered, but to establish causality, there are confounders. So the many factors that can contribute could be the vaccine, the medicine, but it could be medical condition, could be co-medication, and a number of other considerations. So it is a science looking at the totality of the data, using also statistical methods and careful review of reports. So I won't go further into details, but it does require a scientific, careful look at the totality of the data. Over.
Thank you very much, Georgi. Now we take a question from Ulrich Quistgaard from MedWatch. I think that's a Danish outlet. Ulrich, please.
Yes, that is a Danish outlet. Thank you. I would like to ask how the amount of vaccine candidates for COVID-19 has developed lately. Are they all disappearing, or are the companies still trying to develop new ones in the same pace as earlier? And how big do you assess the need is for new vaccines in this area that the existing ones cannot fulfill? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ulrich. If I understood correctly, it's about the pipeline of vaccines, and probably a question for Marco, please.
Yeah, indeed, we are a bit of a transition period. Many of the developers that put a lot of efforts during the pandemic or at the beginning of the pandemic now are rethinking about their strategy. So it's not surprising that we may see some developers going out of the race or not continuing with developing and try to market COVID-19 vaccines. However, at the same time, we are seeing that a lot of developers are trying to work on new vaccines that could provide added benefit compared to those that we have now. For example, we all know that the current vaccines, the protection that they confer is not really long-lasting, particularly for symptomatic infection. And also that their impact on transmission may not be as good as we want it to be. So that's why many of the developers are trying to focus to fill the current gaps in having vaccines that could address some of the public health benefit, which could be, better protection from infection, better ability to block transmissions, and probably more long-lasting protection, including from new variants. So the concept of variant-proof vaccine is still there as an important one. Then there is another layer that still some developers are working on, which is the concept of preparedness for new coronaviruses. So having vaccines that could be panzerbocoviruses, for example, so able to protect against any new beta coronavirus that might spill over from the animal environment and animal reservoir into humans. So yes, there are still developers that are looking into options and particularly try to fill all these gaps in terms of the current armamentarium.